All right, so you guys ready to read? Now, I hope you got enough food in your systems because we are about to read. And I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are excited because this is literally my all-time favorite SVSSS, or the Scum Villains Self-Saving System, Ranjia Fanpai Ziju Tong by MXTX fanfic ever. You said you're glad you made it in time. Yay! This is literally the best one. Honestly, out of all the Danmei fan fiction I've read in total, I would say that this is my second favorite, just in general. Maybe my first favorite? Second? First? I don't know. No Pass Around is pretty good. And I'm talking about Danmei fan fiction only, not other fan fiction. So this one, I will be sharing my screen with you guys so we can read along. So you said excited. This is my introduction to Danmei fanfic. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. So if you want to read along, you are more than welcome to look at the screen, or you can pull it up however you want to do that. But we're going to get into it. We're just reading the first chapter, okay? That's it. So I am going to go ahead and just go through a little bit of the information first, and then we'll get started. How to Train Your Shen Qingqiu by Tenmei_KJ. So the summary of this is what the protagonist of a stallion novel wants, he will get. Never did Shen Qingqiu expect the protagonist's golden halo to extend to dimension hopping. And when the original Luo Bingke invades their dimension once more, he asks the impossible of the transmigrated Shitsuan. How to make a lovable Shen Qingqiu? Which part of Shen Qingqiu looks lovable to you? Protag, you must be blind. System, fix this bug. Ah. So, it is 495,405 words and 80 chapters of pure goodness and madness. I'm also going to read the little notes here just because I feel like they're important for you guys to see as well. Spoilers abound. Turn back if you don't want spoilers, which I think is pretty tame, obviously, in the first chapter. But if you want to continue reading and you haven't finished Scum Villain, you should probably finish Scum Villain. Despite the title, this is not going to be all fluff and sunshine. I have absolutely no idea how this is going to turn out. I just think Shunju deserves happiness. Bingke also deserves a loving Shitsuan, and even though he may have fallen for Shen Yuan version instead, I think he has quite the potential chemistry with Shunju as well. Cross-dimension dialogue might become a thing, with Shunju-Shen Yuan interaction in the future to fulfill those sibling cravings. Shunju's personality would shift quite a bit, being less scummy, but I believe canon provided enough hints that he wasn't quite a scum to begin with, even if he has an originally nasty personality. Someone who can't abandon his senior who went to help others despite being against the idea? You can't tell me that's scum personality, but I'll try to keep it as close to canon as possible. 90% of the story is based on facts regarding Shunju, and I've only MTL'd the chapters revolving the past. So this story can be considered a huge spoiler, so turn back if you're still waiting for updates. My MTL skills are not great either, so once the translation comes out, I will revisit and revise chapters if there is too big a discrepancy. Full reading of Scum Villain main chapters plus the extras is highly recommended before starting on this series. I might not continue it if the story deviates too much, but they definitely continued. It's complete. So now let's go ahead and read. Just to point out as well, conversation is going to be in the standard quotation marks. If it's thoughts, it's just going to be the singular quote, and the system is going to be in these brackets. So we can get started with chapter 1. Chapter 1. Death of Shen Qingqiu. Ever since the original Luo Bingke left them in peace, Shen Qingqiu had never thought he would return. When he uttered that "come with me" to Shen Qingqiu and abruptly went away, he sincerely hoped whatever whim that drove him to say that had been pacified. Back then, he had not given it much thought, but after the situation calmed down, Shen Qingqiu pondered on the words the original had uttered. The way he said it, if Shen Qingqiu had been the clueless reader standing from an observer's standpoint, He would have assumed Luo Bingke wanted another copy of his vengeance to take out his frustrations on. However, the slightest hint of desperation that tinted his words reminded him too much of his own Bingke. It made Shen Qingqiu wonder how the original Luo Bingke saw Shen Qingqiu, or if he had to separate it from himself, Shen Jiu. When he was young, he indeed had a sliver of respect for his master and perhaps a shred of hope since he picked Luo Bingke to be his disciple. Shen Qingqiu also knew from his own experience that Luo Bingke remembered all the good deeds done to him as well as, perhaps, even better than the bad ones done to him. Suddenly, he wondered why he was thinking of all this and decided for his mental health that it was better he did not look too much into it. His husband was away at the main palace running his usual affairs. Shen Qingqiu got up from his seat from within the bamboo house. Being spoiled silly with Luo Bingke's cooking, Shen Qingqiu would risk becoming a typical plump housewife if he wasn't careful. He stepped out to take a walk just to see a rift slowly opening mid-air, and immediately Shen Qingqiu got onto his sword and sped away on reflex. Luo Bingke no longer used the Xinmo sword, which meant only one thing. As he sped toward the palace, Shen Qingqiu could see Luo Bingke rushing towards him from the other side. Immediately, the partners came together and Luo Bingke took a quick glance over his wife before asking, "Did he do anything to you?" The demon lord must have sensed the disturbance caused by Xinmo's sword and came to the same conclusion as Shen Qingqiu did. Shen Qingqiu was about to answer when Luo Bingke narrowed his eyes and hid him behind his own body. From where Shen Qingqiu just came from, a silhouette very similar to the one right before his eyes slowly sauntered closer. Wearing that ever-irritating smirk on his face, the original Luo Bingke had invaded their world once more. System, can you explain this? Shen Qingqiu's heart could not take it if Luo Bingke could just come to their world whenever he felt like it. Essentially, when the latter probably still had Shenju in human stick form somewhere in his own world. Key item of the original setting has overcome dimensional barrier. This is not a bug within the system. Is there a way to stop this? Destruction of key item is an option. However, the destruction of key item is recommended after restoring every person to their original dimension. They were officially screwed. If they did it the system way, that meant they'd have to first send Luo Bingke back to his side and steal the Xinmo sword to destroy it. Luo Bingke of this dimension could not control the Xinmo sword as well, so that was also an existing risk. That meant they had to steal it to come back to their own world if they ever fell into the other one while battling the original. Shizun, I came to see you again. The original was able to sense the tension coursing through the air and seemed to revel in it. Luo Bingke was ready to fight him if need be, but Shen Qingqiu restrained him by putting a hand on his upper arm. His calm facade never changing, the fan was open and concealed most of his expression. To what do I owe the honors, Luo Bingke? Well, the only person I've ever known to be more intelligent is Shitsuin, so I came to seek your advice. More intelligent than whom? Shen Qingqiu did not need to ask. Luo Bingke was naturally a bright child. He'd be honored to have been acknowledged to be more intelligent than his disciple was if it wasn't the fact that Luo Bingke seemed to have malicious intentions for him. Shen Qingqiu did not interrupt, prompting the original to continue. He drew out a patch from his sleeves, which Shen Qingqiu recognized as a minor spirit tool. The original novel introduced a lot of tools which, due to the poor plot, never properly saw the light of day. He only knew by sight that it was a spirit pouch, specifically designed to hold souls. Upon realizing that, a growing dread began to numb Shen Qingqiu's senses because he suddenly had an epiphany regarding the soul inside that pouch. Shitsun, tell me, how can I make it so that this Shen Qingqiu can become as lovable and obedient? This Shen Qingqiu that the original Luo Bingke referred to was obviously what he was merely twirling in his hands. Understanding the implications, the Luo Bingke of this world grew dangerously angry. You killed Shitsun? Shen Qingqiu had heard that when Luo Bingke was over in the other world, he could not find the other Shen Qingqiu. Even if it wasn't his Shitsuin, Luo Bingke had been concerned. It was only natural that he could not believe that his alternate self could have murdered Shen Qingqiu. To have myself, of all people, wrapped around your little finger, this disciple is amazed at what the Shitsuin of this world is capable of. Answer me! Did you kill Shitsuin? Luo Bingke roared, to which the original coolly scoffed at this unsightly version of himself. Taunting him by tossing the spirit pouch casually into the air, the original Luo Bingke answered, had you encountered this Shen Qingqiu, you would be spitting on the one next to you in rage. Shen Qingqiu had no words to say. After all, he knew what a scum the original was, and he had spent the earlier part of his transmigration here terrified that he'd be killed by Luo Binghe. However, ever since he got to know almost the entirety of Shenju's past, Shen Qingqiu sympathized with him. Airplane Bro had actually done a very good job in creating this complex character for a villain role, which made it even more miserable that he discarded the possibilities Shenju had just to chase the popularity a single-dimension stallion novel offered. Especially after he heard of what Shenju did for Liu Qingge from Shang Qinghua in one of their conversations. Shen Qingqiu could not help but wonder if that small speck of kindness was what Yue Qingyuan saw in Shenju. This master needs time to consider. Give me 4 hours. 2 hours. God damn it. You want a solution, but you won't give me the time to think. The blackened protagonist is really no joke. Shen Qingqiu looked around their surroundings. It would not do if any of the underlings happened to see the two Luo Binghe and do something rash. Gesturing the original to follow, he took his Luo Binghe's hand into his hand and led him back to the bamboo house. His husband bristled when Shen Qingqiu allowed the original to enter the house, and it took some time to coax Luo Binghe that it was advisable to keep them both out of sight at the moment. Binghe, watch our guest. This master will have to contemplate his options. Shitsuin, call me if you need this disciple. I will. Shen Qingqiu went to the smaller room at the side and immediately brought up the system. System, is this another mission? The alternate dimension is not under the current system administration. However, the system may adapt to environmental changes and process current events as a sequence of missions. Which is better, letting things run as is or having the system handle this? In the first place, how can Bingge even come here so often? Knowledge is the forbidden fruit. Once tasted, they cannot forget. The alternate Luo Binghe has now added dimension skipping to his skills. To the earlier inquiry, no goal objectives are set and there will be no rewards. Under system administration, the alternate identities can be tentatively registered as a mission NPC. This will allow the system to understand the goal of the NPC and reward the account accordingly after mission objective is achieved. Setting up mission objectives would be terribly restrictive, but given the fact that Shen Qingqiu knew almost next to nothing about the real reason Luo Binghe was doing this, it seemed more reasonable for once to let the system sort it out. He tapped his fan thoughtfully against his temple, wondering how far the system's administration could reach if he asked it to tackle the issue at hand. System, how much can you tell me about the alternate Shen Qingqiu, like how he died? As much as he'd like to fulfill Luo Binghe's desires to make him leave, he felt any further punishment to Shen Qingqiu was overdoing it. The poor man has died once. He didn't want to subject the original to further torment if possible. Information access restricted. Tentative contract must be formed for system access. Proceed with system contract. Shen Qingqiu paused for a while. It was a shitty system that never performed up to standards, but it was also a tool that no one except Shen Yuan could access. A little hesitant, he approved the proceedings for the tentative contract. The system immediately completed the task at hand, sending out a musical tone to indicate it was now able to access the alternate's information, albeit limited to the only 2 alternate beings currently in this dimension. Shen Qingqiu data reading completed. Would you like to review and patch current data pack for Shenju? During his altercation with the sect leader, Shen Qingqiu learned a lot about Shenju, and accordingly, his data was already completely unlocked. If there was an update, then he would like to see it. Having already seen a huge chunk of the original's past, he was already wary of the potential misery, but nothing had prepared Shen Qingqiu to be dragged into darkness. For a seamless experience, System has initiated Small Scenario Pusher Deluxe Edition. Please fully enjoy the original's memories. What the fuck? I didn't ask for extra service, System. The rush of images and the familiar dreamscape almost overwhelmed Shen Qingqiu, and the only saving grace was that the memories were viewed from a third-person point of view. If Shen Qingqiu had to synchronize with the original, he would have died from the fear and pain. Shen Qingqiu had simply died from excessive bleeding. Ironically, it was not Luo Bingke who caused his death. He was far too careful in ensuring Shen Qingqiu's prolonged misery. It had been Ning Yingying who dealt the killing blow. Whether out of hatred or pity, Shen Yuan would never know. Finally seeing the confrontation between Shenju and Yueqi, he almost shed many tears for the misunderstandings between the original Shen Qingqiu and Yue Qingyuan. Yue Qingyuan had disappointed Shenju, but he had his reasons. Reasons which it seemed he never revealed to Shenju to the end. Unlike in this world, where their sect leader had told Shen Yuan everything, Shen Yuan almost wanted to curse, but at the same time, he understood the way Yue Qingyuan and Shenju operated. What's done is done. Whatever reasons there were, it would only sound like excuses. Shenju's pride could not tolerate that, and Yue Qingyuan probably thought no reason would be able to justify his failure to rescue Shenju. Ah, fuck. The lack of communication literally killed everyone. God, to think I almost went down that road. His Binke's insecurities grew because Shen Yuan tried so hard to avoid confrontation and never really talked to him. It was now a small regret of his, and probably why Shen Qingqiu tried harder to communicate with him now. The abused becomes the abuser, and the cycle continues. I thought this was a stallion novel, not a drama on trauma. Fuck. The story would have been so complex and interesting if Shenju's background was fully incorporated. But Airplane Bro was right. For a stallion novel, it would be like an extra 500 chapters to fully integrate, and the readers can't wait that long for a villain character. Damn. I hate admitting his plot trimming was right. He should have written something with Shenju as the main character in a novel that isn't of the stallion genre. Shen Qingqiu's taste in literary genre aside, Shen Qingqiu was in quite a pickle now. Shenju was a scum who caused many deaths and deserved death. But he was human as well. He tried to save Yue Qingyuan and had really saved Liu Qingge without ever letting anyone know. How awkward could a man's personality be? Someone call the social services. Someone sue Airplane Bull for giving children such miserable and painful pasts. System, won't any advice I give affect the other world? Is that permissible? The alternate world plot has reached an end with the absence of the author. At this point, plot divergence is now acceptable as a new game plus. The last I checked, this was a stallion novel with shitty plot, not a Gall game. What do you mean by new game plus? You don't mean the original can wipe the slate clean and start over, do you? The key item is capable of achieving such objective. Shen Qingqiu paused at the unexpected answer. It wasn't too long before he understood the system's words. Shinmo's sword was capable of crossing dimensions like this. If they had to explore the meta-science of the ability, Shen Qingqiu, who had the experience of reading countless novels, could easily assume that crossing the dimension of time was possible as well. That meant technically, Luo Bingke could go redo the past, but that was a dangerous gamble, and one Shen Qingqiu was not sure if he could suggest. System, what is the objective of the original? System evaluation of the alternate Luo Bingke can read surface desire only. He desires the revival of Shen Qingqiu. Mission goal is to provide Luo Bingke the answer to his desire. He said he wanted a lovable and obedient Shitsuan. Even if by some miracle Shenju's personality develops for the better, obedient is the last word I'd associate with him. Hell, Even I won't take things lying down from Binghe. The boy must be hallucinating some things when he saw us. I can't even guarantee this. Character growth is outside the parameters allowed by the current tentative contract. This account's mission is only to provide Luo Binghe with a method to bring back Shen Qingqiu. There are no penalties, right? As long as I give him some suggestions about how to bring Shenju back. No penalties for the system. But the same cannot be said of the original if he was unsatisfied with the answers. Shen Qingqiu wanted to tear out his hair. In the first place, Shenju's past was what gave him his miserable personality. If he didn't get a complete overhaul, the original Luo Binghe was not going to get what he wanted. Shen Qingqiu suspected that even if they did, by some miracle, help Shenju get out of his traumatic past, he wouldn't turn out lovable and obedient. Tolerable human, possibly, but Shen Yuan dared not make any promises. He thought long and hard until his 2 hours were up, before making up his mind with a heavy heart. He had to be frank with Binghe if he wanted to get the message across. Luo Binghe had silently watched his alternate version sit at the table quietly, toying with the pouch in his hand. They did not bother speaking to one another, but Luo Binghe had his own questions. His alternate hated Shen Qingqiu enough to kill him. Thinking of the long-gone past, Luo Binghe felt that Shen Qingqiu had been mean to him before, but that had always been for his sake. Was it possible that in the alternate world, Shen Qingqiu's actions escalated to a point that this Luo Binghe could not tolerate? And yet, he came to ask Shen Qingqiu how he could make the soul he held as lovable and obedient. Luo Binghe scoffed inwardly. Even though they were the same person, it seems that his alternate did not understand the man Shen Qingqiu is. His Shutsuan was neither lovable nor obedient. Okay. At least, Shen Qingqiu only revealed his truly lovable side when they were in bed. Other times, his Shutsuan was an aloof man, cool and distant. But his heart was truly warm and caring, and that was who Luo Binghe fell in love with. The 2 hours were spent in silence until Shen Qingqiu returned from the side room, looking slightly grimmer than his usual calm expression. The man sat next to Luo Binghe, eyes trained upon the alternate. Before this master can tell you anything, perhaps you would bother to explain the reason you're doing this. If the reason isn't to Shutsuan's liking. Binghe was testing his waters, but Shen Qingqiu knew with his crafty mind, once they started mind games, there would be no end to it. His fan never wavering before the alternate, he coolly answered, "This master's preferences does not matter in this. If you cannot give an honest reply, how can this master answer?" Alternate Luo Binghe, whom Shen Qingqiu secretly nicknamed Binghe, laughed in return. It seems he too did not want to waste time with beating around the bush. Thus he spoke frankly, a little too frankly perhaps. "I didn't intend to have Shen Qingqiu die so early, so I want him back." So, the system was right about his primary objective. "It is not in this master's place to say, but whatever you have done to Shen Qingqiu, isn't it enough?" "Shutsuan, you said your preference doesn't matter. What does it mean to you what I intend to do with this Shen Qingqiu? Do you intend to become the same as Shen Qingqiu, as cruel and miserable?" It was a low blow, but it certainly caught Binghe's attention. Shen Qingqiu knew that comparing him to his most hated enemy was like treading through a path filled with landmines. But he was not without his calculations. He pressed on, continuing, "Vengeance of the wronged. This master understands. But the man is already dead. Why should you hope to bring him back to torment him further? If even his death cannot pacify you, will continued retribution quench that thirst? What do you know? I won't be satisfied until he stops with those eyes, those defiant eyes." Binghe suddenly snarled. His friendly pretenses dropped. Luo Binghe's fists immediately tightened under the table, but Shen Qingqiu wrapped a hand around his. He looked fearlessly toward the alternate, having received his response. "So you want Shen Qingqiu to succumb to you? You would give him the gift of death if he admitted defeat, or to admit that he was wrong for doing whatever he did to you?" Shen Qingqiu's words seemed to have struck a chord with Binghe, but his murderous gaze did not let up. You seem to know a lot for a nice master like you, he hissed. But Shen Qingqiu had an answer planned for that already. You bring this master a dead man's soul to be revived, to put him through more pain. One can guess as much that he has grievously wronged you somehow. As for Shen Qingqiu's behavior, this master may be more docile, but I am Shen Qingqiu. How he would act, this master can at least guess. He bluffed as he went along. Even if there was no evidence that he transmigrated and replaced the original of this dimension, Shen Yuan could not let them know he was not Shen Jiu. You underestimate how well Shen Qingqiu understands his own actions. Whatever he has done wrong, this master can guess he was quite aware. Therefore, your vengeance was perhaps to him well deserved. He will not bother explaining himself, only silently endure his karma. Shutsun. Luo Bingke's expression was slightly pained, holding Shen Qingqiu's hand tightly underneath the table. Shen Qingqiu wondered if it was some sort of irony, as he too had times when he did not bother to explain himself like Shen Jiu. The moment he pushed Luo Bingke into the abyss was a huge example of this habit. Again, it is not this master's place to say this, but Shen Qingqiu has already suffered more than enough. Would you not spare him? This was a sincere plea. Shen Qingqiu knew almost the entirety of Shen Jiu's life now. He experienced nothing but pain from his foster family, to falling under a toxic master, to leading a miserable life formed by his own twisted life experiences and spiraled into a prolonged torture, ended by slowly bleeding to death. Shen Jiu really had nothing going for him. Maybe that was also why he felt nothing being tortured by Luo Bingke. He had nothing to lose. At least at the end of the road, Luo Bingke had a harem of over 600 beauties and power to rule the world. Suffered enough? On what accounts would you say he suffered enough? Shen Qingqiu bit back a sigh. He really did not want to do this. To reveal Shen Jiu's past would be tantamount to murdering the proud man. He would have preferred death over letting anyone know his past. But Shen Qingqiu hoped that even with a blackened protagonist, he would still be able to appeal to whatever slightest sliver of pity Bingke possessed, and hopefully let Shen Jiu finally rest in peace. You can see into his soul's memories with your abilities in the dream realm. Take a look for yourself how Shen Qingqiu lived, then come back and tell this master if you still want to torture the man. I can't have you run away while I go into the dream realm. I'll have you come with me, Shitsuan. I'm going too. I won't let you be with Shitsuan alone. No, this master won't allow it. It wasn't that he didn't want Luo Bingke to know the original's past. Shen Qingqiu was more worried if he would feel that the current Shen Qingqiu was too unnatural once he saw how bitter and miserable Shen Jiu's past was. But Bingke only had a twisted smile of satisfaction, proclaiming, Good. Maybe then you can see for yourself what a scum Shen Qingqiu was. Everyone then fell into the darkness of the dreamscape. But Shen Qingqiu ended up in the darkness without either of the Luo Bingke, but before him stood a mirror image. You're not me. The end of chapter 1. So that is an introduction to How to Train Your Shen Qingqiu by Tenmei_KJ. So it's clear that we know the original Luo Bingke has come back into the transmigrated world, and he wants to bring his deceased Shen Qingqiu back. Shen Qingqiu's only options are basically, well, in the end, he tells him, look at his memories and then let him rest in peace. So we get to the end, and clearly he's looking at himself in the mirror. Shen Yuan has met the original Shen Qingqiu. He says, you're not me. So that is just a little taste of it. It is, honestly, I'm trying to remember when I read this. I don't really think there was any chapter that I read and I was just like, can I move on? I mean, there may have been, because I feel like all stories have it. But this fanfic is so freaking good. Rubies, you said that you're not me. What a cliff. I know, perfect cliffhanger. When I saw it, I was like, yes, this is the perfect cliffhanger. So I hope you all enjoyed the reading of that chapter. It's extremely good. I highly recommend it if you've already read SVSSS. For those of you on Patreon who will be reading SVSSS for the month of December, and then I think like the first 1 or 2 days of January, if you want to continue the story, I highly recommend this one, because this fanfic it's not a retelling of SVSSS. It is like a continuation. And given that it is almost 500,000 words, that's basically like 4 to 5 more books essentially. So, I mean, when I put it in my list for books that I read, I think I counted it as 4 books, because I was like, it's basically the equivalent, maybe even a little bit, a lot of bit more actually. But yes, it really does give you that closure, because if there's one thing I felt when I read the original story, I really did feel bad for the original Shen Qingqiu, because he was misunderstood. Did he do some bad things? He absolutely did. But, still, he was not a bad guy. So this gives you like the closure you're looking for both the original Shen Qingqiu and the original Luo Bingke, because I wanted the original Luo Bingke to have a happy ending as well, especially after that extra when he said to Shen Yuan, "Come with me." I was like, oh my God. So